I just wanted to come on here real quick and talk about my spiritual testimony real quick. I'm gonna break this up in parts. This one involves my childhood. This one involves my childhood, basically. Um, so I'm gonna start here, and then it'll end like when I'm 19, and then 19, and then from 19 and up, basically. I'll talk about my spiritual life. And I'm also going to be breaking up this in parts, so you'll have to bear with me. And stuff like my personal hobbies or whatever the case may be, I'm going to try and leave it out because I write a lot. That's a whole another thing. Um, so, and also, I also want to mention this that my spiritual testimony is not for My spiritual testimony is not for weak people. If you have triggers due to suicide, murder, um, a lot of death, phrases like saying "fuck God" and "hail Satan," if you have triggers towards actual black magic, um, what else is there? Human sacrifice. That's also another one. Um, Abandonment issues, loneliness, drugs, and rape. It's not for you, bro. I'm a very dark person. Um, my art reflects who I am. I've lived a very dark life. I come off as a serious person online, but I've lived a very dark life. I talk about it in my rhymes and stuff. But I just wanted to let you know ahead of time. Then this is not for you. And this video also is going to contain cussing because this is actually about my life. So I'm not just going to be cussing just to cuss. Um, um, but yeah. Um, but before I talk about who I am, I want to talk about my mom because my mom is the one that brought me into this life. And I have a book on my life. It's called The Spiritual Life of Paul Webster. You can look it up on just type in Paul Truther, Truther, and you'll find it on Amazon. And it's with my 8 other poetry books. But this is the stuff that isn't in there. And I also want to say that if you do buy that, decide to buy that, it has errors and a lot of other stuff. And also, my testimony contains stuff like demonic possession, having sex with actual demons, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's get into this. So, my mom was born in the 60s, in 1966. And my oldest brother, my 2 brothers, one of them, my oldest brother was born in 87, and my other brother was born in 88. I only have 2 brothers. Each of us, we have 3 different dads. My mom wasn't out there. She took care of us. We had everything we needed when we were growing up. But pertaining before I was born, my mom, I'm actually not supposed to be here. My mom got assaulted once before I was born. This is way before she met my dad. There was a guy that assaulted her when my brothers were 5 and 6. And eventually, the guy that assaulted her, she ended up meeting him again, ironically, in life again. Um, there's that. Then there's also the fact that my mom also has almost gotten raped and killed by the police when she was driving in the car with my brothers one day. This is before I was born. Um, I'm trying to think of anything else. And that's pretty much really it. Pertaining to my grandparents, before I was born, my grandparents pretty much were divorced before I was born. Um, yeah, I'm gonna just leave it at that. And then pertaining to my mom, actually meeting my dad, I have the same first and last name as my dad, except my dad doesn't have a middle name. I'm not going to say my middle name. But basically, my mom met my dad. And when I was born, basically, my dad tried to assault my mom or whatever the case is. That part's fuzzy. I don't like my dad. But my original name was supposed to be Nashawn. Thank God. My name is Paul. I hate that name. And so basically, my dad forced my mom to give me the name Paul, in which he did something right. Um, so that, and then shortly after I was born, and also I want to mention that my brothers and my mom were praying that I was a girl, but I turned out to be a man, a boy. But outside of that, but shortly after I was born, um, shortly after I was born, basically, and this is in my book, my mom tells me the story every time I ask her. If I remember this correctly, basically after I was born, one day, somewhere down the line after I was born, and I wasn't even one yet, or even five, really, um, a guy came into our house and he tried to kill me and my family. He tried to kill me as a newborn, and he tried to kill my mom, who I was born in '95. Um, my mom, whatever age she was, and my brothers, who were 5 and 6, and through the grace of God, we're all still alive, and so that didn't happen. And so, fast forward in life, basically, the first time I ever I grew up in the hood. I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I grew up, I'm not going to say what street I grew up on, but I grew up in the area where basically where people were getting shot in front of my house and people were getting killed in front of my house. I never saw a body, but I always saw the outline of people that were getting killed. It was a normal thing. I went to school with it. My mom was always paranoid about leaving me outside, as she should, and me being at a friend's house or whatever the case may be. And you see why now. But the first time I ever I also want to talk about my mom too. My mom's Christian. I grew up in a Christian family, and I also continuously, all throughout up until now, all through my walks of life, I've always went to church. I have a lot of people in my family are Christian, and so I grew up in church. My mom always took us to church out of all the things, and she always taught us to always go to God and all these other things. Even though she was busy doing a lot of other stuff, my mom always taught us to go to God and have a connection with God. And so my mom's Christian. My mom's not no Satanist, none of that. My mom's just an ordinary woman. And when I was 5 years old, when I was 5 years old, the first time I ever had a spiritual experience was in first grade. It's in my book. I remember I described this more into detail, but basically, I remember I was in Target, or I was in the store with my mom, and I looked at a DVD and I looked at the movie Gremlins, the first movie, because apparently there are sequels, the little fur ball or whatever the case is. And there's a hand on the cover where it's like this green slimy hand or whatever the case may be, that when the fur ball turns into a gremlin. Well, after that happened, I was first grade. I was 5 or 6 years old. I'll never forget this. The first memory I'll ever have of having a spiritual experience was at that age, and that was when I met the devil for the first time. I met a demon for the first time in my house, and my house was actually haunted. In areas where they have a lot of death, a lot of people die, that area is most likely going to have a lot of negative energy, and demons are going to be rampant. And in my house, I'll never forget this. I woke up one day, the day after I went to the store. I woke up one day in my bed, and my mom's in the other room, and I see a demon. I see the hand of a demon at my door. I didn't see its face or anything, but the demon didn't come in my room. And basically, I'll never forget this. I had to use the bathroom, but my mom wouldn't take me to the bathroom, even though it was right across from me. And basically, it traumatized me, basically. And that was when I didn't meet God until I was 15, and I'll talk about that later. And so there's that. And then as I gradually have it written in my notes. Um, and basically, gradually, as I got older, from five and up, um, up until I was 10 years old, basically, I had a connection with more of my with I had a connection with my more I have more of a connection with my brother's dads than my actual dad. It's just like building up until I was 10 years old. I'm like going everywhere, but just bear with me. Um, and I never saw my dad. I saw my dad when I was a kid, like maybe like twice. Um, Once he took me somewhere and don't remember. It was with a buddy of his, and then and then I came home, and then he was concerned about basically if I was going to be gay or not, because I had this thing when I was a kid. I liked toys, didn't matter what it was. I played with action figures and Barbie dolls, and I'm still fine, the straightest person ever. He didn't want me turning out to be gay because I had a Tinkerbell toy, and he was arguing with my mom. And then basically that happened, and then shortly afterwards, my mom gave me the Tinkerbell toy. I played with it. It was whatever. It's not a big deal. And that's pretty much it. But I always grew up hating my dad. I always grew up hating my dad. I hated my dad's guts. I wished my dad was dead. I'll talk about adulthood later. I wish my dad was dead. Didn't care for him. Wanted to kill my dad, basically. Um, so that and gradually, as I grew older, up until the age of 10, I was constantly getting in fights with people. I would get suspended from school damn near every day. And my mom would whoop me, but it wouldn't work. My mom would whoop me. I would get suspended from school. My mom would whoop me, and then that same day I would get suspended. I was constantly always in trouble. I was always fighting people. When I was 5 years old, I had a seizure because I had got the flu shot or whatever the case is, and I almost died in first grade. I'm going like everywhere, but and then years later, it turns out that I had like narcolepsy. I had all these problems. Going back and forth to the doctor. I was a science experiment, basically. I constantly remember always having to go to doctors trying to figure out what's wrong with me. I had tubes and stuff shoved down my up my nose. I would go to the hospital. My older brother would be yelling at the doctors or whatever the case is. My mom would always constantly have to calm him down. And then didn't turn out until I was like maybe like in fourth or fifth grade that I had like narcolepsy. But I was constantly having all these studies done on me, all these sleep studies. I had like stuff on my head where they put like wires on my head or whatever the case may be. Um, and while all that was going on, um, I was a real angry person. I was a real angry kid. Um, Once again, I'm thinking. Once again, what else is there? There's that, and then basically, moving forward past 5 years old, um, and whatnot. I'm trying to think. Um, Eventually, um, my older brother, not my oldest brother, but my older brother, would have problems with my mom, and they would always go back and forth at it. They're at peace now that I'm older, but they always go back and forth at it. It would be always be because of the people he's hanging around or whatever the case may be. Um, and they always go back and forth with it. They had problems. Um, a lot of stuff like favoritism, a lot of stuff. She was raising three of us by herself, and I was getting older. Eventually, my older brother, somewhere down the line, he slit his throat in front of me and my family when I was like in fourth or fifth grade. And basically, he eventually ended up getting kicked out of the house, and my mom didn't want him coming in the house because she just didn't. He was disrespectful, whatever the case may be. And then my brother would struggle with being homeless. I think he was like 16 or 17 or whatever the case may be. He would struggle with being homeless and going to other people's houses and all this other stuff. But a lot of stuff and problems with his dad, and that's where me and my older brother relate. He doesn't really have a connection with his dad, even though he knows his dad more than I do. Um, so that would happen, and eventually my older brother would get kicked out of my house. Not my house, but you know what I mean, my mom's house. And so it would really just be me and my oldest brother. But eventually, around the time when I was like 10, he graduated when I was like 10. Eventually, around fourth or fifth grade, he would graduate high school, and he would go on and move on to California or whatever the case may be. And I was alone. And so basically, everybody that pretty much that I loved in my life was gone. My oldest brother was gone. My older brother got kicked out the house, and he was doing whatever. Only person I really had in my life that actually raised me and saw the person I became in life, well, unfortunately didn't, was my grandma. And I had my grandma and my uncle and my mom, and that was pretty much it. Um, and somewhere in between, I know it was in elementary school, but basically I ended up building a hatred towards God, and I end up hating God because basically, yeah, I'm going everywhere, but I would hate God because I didn't have a father in my life. I had all these medical problems that were going on, didn't know what was wrong with me. Stuff going on in my house, didn't fit in. People thought I was ugly. People thought I wasn't attractive. I was a fat kid. I had this thing where every time I slept, my tongue would be sticking out of my mouth, and people made fun of me because of that. On top of being afraid of getting suspended because my mom whooped me, all this other stuff. But then my mom would basically stand up for me because it would be justified. Um, Almost went to jail when I was in fifth grade because being forced to bully somebody, and I would get bullied a lot, being forced to get in fights and all these other things. Um, I was also in special ed because I had narcolepsy. I was in special ed, sidetracking. I was in special ed until I was like 19, which is the age where I graduated high school. Um, that, and it was not just that, it was also the fact of when I was a kid. I remember doing this. I remember I said, fuck God, mentally in my mind, even though I didn't have a grasp of it and I hated God so much. That's what I declared in my mind. I was saying that the devil was my Lord and Savior, and I was pretty evil, pretty dark um, when I was a kid. Didn't mutilate animals, didn't do any of that stuff. I loved animals. Um, but that happened, and then I remember after that happened, after I said that in my mind, and this is when my before my oldest brother, when my older brother and my oldest brother were still in the house. Basically, there it was raining one day, and the weather was real bad, and there was and whatnot. And my mom told me, and I think I was in fourth or fifth grade, and my mom told me to close the window. And basically, I peeped outside in the back of the yard, and I almost got sucked into a tornado. Right after I said those words, but there's like it was a miniature small tornado in the back of our yard, and basically it was basically in the back of our house. It's a small miniature tornado before you see stuff um, on the news or whatever what a tornado looks like before it becomes huge. That was in the back of our yard, and didn't move. It didn't touch me. I wanted to go near it, but something told me don't. But the tornado, it didn't move. It was motion. It was motionless in one spot. And in the back of our yard, we had tulips growing in the back of our yard. I know because I would take my teacher tulips. Um, and so yeah, it was that, and my house was haunted once again. And then I hated God with a passion, with every fiber in my being. Um, Only time I would even really go, my mom obviously would take me to church, but the only time I would actually even be free was really when I would be hanging with my friends who would be down the street or whatever the case may be, or or like playing video games or watching cartoons or with my cousin. Um, so that I'm trying to think of other stuff in my childhood, but it was that, and then I remember I actually thought about this because I do have a very good memory. Um, Eventually, somewhere in my childhood, I would go to one of my friend when I was child. His name was Woo, WOO, like Woo. Um, and I would go to his house, his aunt's house, not his mom's house. His mom was like real abusive. Um, um, she treated him bad a lot. But basically, when I went go over to his aunt's house who I could walk to, I remember I'll never forget this. Every time I went to her house, knew she smoked a lot. She wouldn't smoke around me or whatever the case is. But one day, I guess I didn't have school, so it was the weekend. I would spend the night over her house sometimes, and basically, while I had everything in my house, like food, water, all these other things, um, she was broke. My mom's friend basically was broke. I remember waking up one day and the only thing we had, and she also had a son that was paralyzed in a wheelchair, so he couldn't do anything. He would always be in his room, in his bed, whatever the case may be. But I remember that he basically, not he, but I remember waking up one day and just like a Baby Kids movie, there was nothing in her fridge. The only thing that was in her fridge was jelly and toast, and there was like maybe like 4 or 6 slices of bread, and she had nothing in her fridge, and she was broke. She was poor basically, and that once I ate the toast because I knew how to cook for myself by the time I was in fourth or fifth grade. Um, I was drinking fluorinated water, and that was it. And I would basically be starving, and it wouldn't be till early in the day until later on in the day till I could actually walk to my house because they didn't want me walking by myself. But my mom's friend was broke and had nothing. It made me even more grateful, even though I would come over there and spend time with my friend. Had nothing, and we play stuff like Def Jam, Beautiful Joe, for GameCube, and we play stuff like Dragon Ball Z and whatever the case may be. But that was pretty much it. Um, and then also another thing is too about like the whole narcolepsy thing. It's the fact that I also was in a wheelchair due to my narcolepsy, and my mom. That was another thing that the doctors gave my mom. I was in a wheelchair, and I always like it's controlled now, but I would always like fall asleep while I'm talking to you. I would have a drunken laughter, all types of stuff. A lot. It was like those are the common things in narcolepsy, and I had that early in my childhood. And it really, I think pretty much that's it. I'm gonna do a separate video for like my hobbies and why I'm into music and why I like comic books and all this other stuff. But that was pretty much it. Um, Also, I wanted to mention because I'm still, I know I'm everywhere, but all that happened within the span of 10 years of me being alive. And also, when I was about in between first and third grade, I almost got kidnapped because I'm another reason why I'm passionate about what I do. Um, Me and my oldest brother, we all three of my brothers, we have different um, dads, but my oldest brother on his side of the family, they treat me and my older brother like we're family, and they still do that. But at the time between I was in first and third grade, um, I was over at his grandma's house on his dad's side of the family, and the area she stays in is known as the worst area code in Wisconsin, and it also has the highest incarceration rate. And so basically, one day I was at her house, and basically I just wandered off. I just um, left her house one day, left out, and I think they were having a party or something. and my mom was looking for me, didn't know where I was. My older brother lost track of me when we were kids. And basically, I roamed around, I walked around the entire block like almost like 5 or 6 times, and I almost got kidnapped. And where I'm from, basically, they don't care if you're a kid or whatever the case is. They snatch you up and they kill you. And that's the type of environment I grew up in. And I remember crying. I remember saying to myself, I hope I'm home. And eventually, it was God basically protecting me. And basically, I'll never forget too when I was walking. There's like these group of dudes. I wanted to go up to these dudes to see if they could walk me home, but there was this dude that was playing basketball, and he just gave me this evil grin on his face, and it spooked me. And that's the reason why I always just kept walking around the neighborhood and hopefully to get back home. And so that happened, and I'm trying to think if that was it. Yeah, that pretty much was it. And then eventually, while I was still in elementary school, I had sleep paralysis for the first time, and also keep in mind that I hated God and had sleep paralysis. And um, basically, I saw a gargoyle. I was watching gargoyles when I was a kid from Disney, and I saw a gargoyle, and it looked like a fallen angel with had gray skin, had black eyes, it had gray wings, just like in gargoyles, and it was suffocating me. And basically, I couldn't breathe, basically, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs. Well, I couldn't even talk, and it was suffocating me. And it actually left claw marks on my body, which I have still on my shoulders to this day. And also too, when I would be in my house, I would also have demons basically try and suffocate me while I'm asleep on my pillow. I would scream in my pillow, screaming for help. And basically, I remember that instance because me and my older brother, we shared a bunk bed, and I could hear if my brother on the bunk bed would jump off. And either you could if you've had a bunk bed before, you know that you can hear somebody when they're getting down on the bunk bed. And we didn't have a ladder, and so that instance, and pretty much that wraps it up for me being in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In terms of eventually when I would graduate fifth grade, I would move to Georgia, in which I turned 11, and I would move to Georgia in the suburbs, and I would move here. And basically, when I was 10, I would go to the aisle with my mom in church, and the pastor we were going to over in Gainesville, Georgia, I guess I felt something, and me and my mom, we both held each other's hands, and we both got baptized in the name of the Holy Spirit and Jesus when I was 10. And I'll never forget this. And I'll never forget this. And this gets into the bigger picture of who I am. I remember the guy held a microphone to my mouth, and he asked me what my name is. I mentioned my middle name, said, well, my family name, my middle name that my family calls me, not going to say it. But I remember saying that, and the guy who's like 40, 30 something years old, he says that, wow, your voice is deeper than mine. And because I developed early when I was a kid, the stuff they put in food or whatever the case is, my voice dropped when I was like between fourth and fifth grade. I think between like third to fifth grade, my voice dropped, which that's pretty early. And so that happened. And then I remember after I got baptized, or when I came up, I totally forgot, but a lady came up to us, and she came up to me and my mom, and she said that basically when you get older, you're going to basically be a pastor when you get older. Thank God I'm not. Thank God I'm not. I always tried to avoid that. I hated that. I still remember that. Uh, and I don't know if the lady had to give a prophecy or whatever the case is, but the lady basically prophesied over my life and told me that basically when you get older, your voice is basically going to cause you to do great things and you'll be a great person. In which I've been told that every time I speak, every time people meet me in person, it's like people listen. I have like the voice basically of a lion. It's like when it's weird. It's a quality that God gave me, and so that and there's that, and then fast forward into life, the first time I'll have another spiritual experience, and in which basically my I would see a shadow person, and this is when me and two of my friends, Alex and DJ, we basically be walking around the neighborhood. We were just goofing around, and there was fog, and I saw a shadow person in the distance where my friend Alex stayed. So there's that, and then there's that, and also the fact that hold on, let me pause this. There's that, and my real experience basically would go to when I was 15, and I'm fast forwarding. And when I was 15, basically, I would between 15 and 16 years old, I would be gang banging, hanging around people that were in gangs, and where the middle school I went to. Was it middle school? No, I was in high school. I'll be gang banging. I'd be selling drugs. I did that like maybe like 5 times in my life. I don't do it anymore. Would sell drugs, but I think between 15 and 16, it was when I was 15 years old. Um, that's when I discovered like the Illuminati, what it is, and this is when YouTube was free and had where people were talking about the signs and symbols, and then I think that would be when people would talk about. I watch videos of people talking about witchcraft and all these other things, and basically, long story short, I was sleeping in the room with my cousin one day because we would share a room. We would have beds and stuff in our room, and basically, he was sleeping. He was ready to knock out, and I basically drew a Ouija board on the back of a cardboard piece of paper for a notebook. And so that happened. And after that happened, this is actually the first time I actually met God for the first time. I went to hell. I went to hell for the first time when I was 15 years old. And I remember this distinctively. I saw the devil. I saw the devil sitting on a throne, laughing his butt off. And I was on fire. I was on fire, and I was getting crucified like I was Jesus, and I was on fire. And there was a nail that was about to go right into my skull, the center of my skull. And that happened. And I saw the hand of God. I saw the hand of God. I saw a giant, majestic white hand pull me out of hell. And I woke up, and I had that same recurring dream for about between 15 and 30 minutes. And after that, pretty much I threw away my cardboard piece of paper and threw it in the trash, whatever the case is. So there's that. And what else was there? And then I'm trying to think. Then there was when I was 17. Our house was in foreclosure. Eventually, my mom's house was in foreclosure. Basically, when I was 17, we moved to an apartment complex. But to sum this stuff up, I was in a long distance relationship, whatever the case might be. Yeah, I was in a long distance relationship, and basically, long story short, I practically knew everything when I was 17, or almost everything when I was 17, because I studied. I had like occult books. I had stuff studying the occult. I had was in the numerology, all these other things, and basically things didn't go my way. A lot of stuff was happening in our relationship. The chick I was obsessed with, or whatever the case is, and things weren't going my way. Started practicing black magic, basically, and totally forgot what I did. Basically, put a hit out for somebody, and and in which case, even though eventually me and this person um, basically, I put out a hit for somebody, and that person ended up almost blowing their brains out. Um, so that was unsuccessful, and that was just me doing black magic. But basically, that happened, um, and nope, that person is still alive, or whatever the case may be. But that happened, and really right after I did that, I started seeing demons. I was plagued. I stayed up for a week straight. I couldn't close my eyes. I almost cut my eyes out. It was so horrific that I almost cut both of my eyes out. I was in a psychiatric ward, basically. I was crazy. Went crazy. I left my house. I was seeing spirits. I was seeing rats with red eyes manifesting like stuff everywhere. Um, Actual demons, and um, went to a psychiatric hospital, basically, and I was there for about 2, 3 weeks. And there, even though I went there for like depression and like anger management before, but that was the third time I was there. People knew my face, and basically the room I was sleeping in, I had to stay overnight. Basically, and when I was sleeping in the bed I was sleeping in, I was sleeping under an upside down cross that was drawn there by one of the patients, which the people there worked there, they ignored. And that happened, and I would be consistently drawing demons. I'll be going consistently drawing pictures of demons, talking to people about it, and people would relate to me, talk to me. I'd be, I remember when I was there when I was 17, I would be surrounded by Satanists. I was basically Daniel in a lion's den. The kids that were there, because I was in the department for kids since I was 17. Um, the vast majority of them were Satanists. One of the dudes was tried to kill his mom with an axe. Him and his sister, his mom and his sister with an axe. Um, a lot of stuff, and I would see demons on reflective surfaces, and the hospital I was going to was haunted. A lot of things. So there's that, and I'm gonna end this video. That I'm almost out of space for this video, but I'm gonna continue in my second video.